Hey guys, and welcome to my vlog. My name is Erin, and I am a writer. So I haven't done vlogging for a little while, and I decided that I would get back into it with a little bit more of a writing focus. So I'm going to be doing a vlog series on world building. Right now I am working on, oh lord, like 4 fantasies because I'm really bad at doing one project at a time. So I figured a lot of the questions that I came across would be things that I could address in a vlog and help other writers. This isn't necessarily writing advice per se. A lot of it is just things to think about so that you can have a richer world. Our first vlog is going to be on language. Yay! Oh, and also I'll introduce my decorative cat. This is Willow. She is one of 3 fuzzes that I have. So she gets to enjoy being in videos today. So when you're creating a fantasy world, the use of language is probably going to be dependent on how big your world is. Because obviously different nations, geographical locations, etc. are going to have their own languages. And if your characters are traveling to other locations, the chances of them never encountering a different language are pretty slim unless your world is extremely homogenous, which it probably shouldn't be, because the real world is not. So what you're going to want to consider once you have the base idea of how big your world is and how much of the story is going to cover those different areas, then you can kind of figure out what languages are going to be applicable and how they can play into the story. I had to pause for another visitor joining us, so this is Snow. She's another one of my kitties. So you guys are lucky you get to have decorative cats all over the place. Okay, so when you're considering language, you're going to want to consider what types of a language. So besides verbal communication, you're also going to have your writing systems, sign languages, music, art, all that kind of stuff. And these things don't necessarily have to be incorporated into the plot, but you should sort of be aware of what your base communication system is going to be. Alright, so in a lot of fantasy worlds, your characters are going to be fluent in a lot of languages. For some reason, it's very common for characters to just be able to speak and understand any language that they encounter. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you should definitely be explaining why your character have these linguistical skills. So if they're an ambassador, maybe they're royal, maybe they're just really interested in learning neighboring languages. All of that's fine. Just maybe mention it. So again, if one of your characters is fluent, they're going to be really, really useful if your characters are traveling around. If you have a character that is super charismatic and suave, you can F that skill right up by popping them in a situation where they can't understand anybody. Because it's very hard to charm people when you can't talk to them at all. So this can be a plot point, it doesn't have to be. But in this way you can use language to enrich your story. Young ladies. So, for example, one of the stories that I'm writing, the character is forcibly taken from her village to another one quite far away, and she doesn't speak any of the language. So we go through the frustrating progression of her being able to communicate not at all, to slowly learning the language, developing intimacy with the other characters, and being able to communicate. And you can use this for some of your story if you want to, but again, you really don't have to. It's just an option because language is so diverse and you can do so much more with it than a lot of people might think. Another option, if you are including a hero's journey, such as like Lord of the Rings, you're going from the Shire to Mordor, a lot of things are kind of skipped in those, but you can include a lot of different language diversity and weave it into what's happening. Also, if you're going to have characters that are bilingual, then you're going to probably want to talk to people who are bilingual if you are not yourself. Because the way that bilingualism works is going to be a lot different than you expect it to be if you are not bilingual. the way that language is processed and how they're mixed together when you're communicating. You should be aware of that, otherwise people are going to read it who are bilingual and they'll be like, what the hell is going on here? So it's very simple. Even if you just get a beta reader that is bilingual to kind of fix it up for you a little bit later so that you get a more authentic and realistic feel, then that's good. Another thing you're going to want to look at with languages is accents. And a lot of times people can do these very poorly and they come across very offensive. So what you're going to want to do is, if you are basing any accents off of real life ones, try to find someone who has that accent and can correct you and just sort of help improve it so that it doesn't look like you haven't done any research. Because you obviously don't want to offend your readers. You don't want your accents to come across as stereotypical and offensive. And there are editors and betas and critique writers out there who specialize in this, and you just have to look for them. And you don't even necessarily have to include accents in your book. Sometimes it's simple enough to just be like, this person speaks with this accent, and you can casually bring it up as the story progresses, just as a reminder that they're not speaking with the base accent of the other characters. If you are using a fantasy language, the same thing is probably going to be needed, because any accent that you can think of is probably going to be at least semi-based off of a real one. And it's good to just have someone who speaks with accents or is aware of how to write them so that you can get a really authentic feel out of it. Ultimately, a lot of these things don't have to show up specifically in the writing itself, but you as the writer should be aware of basically all of it. You need to know the intimate facets of your world, and regardless of whether it's put into your book, you knowing those details will enrich the product. So that's all I've got for you today in regards to language. If you guys can think of other details, feel free to add those in the comments. Both my books, Olympian Confessions, Hades and Persephone, and Olympian Confessions, Hera, are both available. I will put links in the description along with my website and social media, so feel free to contact me. I love talking to people. And thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.